So you want to build something. Look at these things. Follow me.
Alright guys, so the first thing you're wanting to do in this build is you want to cut out your 4 boards for framing. After that, we're going to cut out the joists to throw on together. Alright, now that you have your 4 boards cut, we're going to throw them all together. Best way to do this is just throw it together with a nail gun, or you can also add screws to it. So next what we're going to do here in the build is we're going to add our joists. Our joists are going to be our 2x6 boards, and they're going to be marked at 16 inches apiece. And we're going to make a deck on the front, so we're going to add another one as well on the 3-foot mark. All you have to do at this point is just measure each joist to fit in between the walls. And that's what I'm doing right here. So now that we have our joist cut, we're going to go ahead and throw them on. So unfortunately here in the video my nail gun breaks on me, so we're going back to screws.
See over here at 16 inches, 16 inches. I also have a mark at 3 feet, because right here is where my deck's going to be going. While the rest of them, 16 inches apiece. As you guys can see, I had to take out 2 boards from over here because this is going to be my little run. It's going to be a 4-foot run.
So now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and cut out our deck. Our deck's going to be made out of 2x6 boards, and it's going to be 3 foot long. So what I like to do here next before I screw my deck down is I like to test fit it. And after I test fit it, then I can see if I have to adjust anything or not. Then I'll screw it down. So the next thing we're going to do now is we're going to throw on our floor. Right here on the floor, we're just going to throw it onto the joist, and then I'm going to go under it and mark it with a marker. After we get the floor put on the joist, I actually bought a new nail gun, so it's going to make work so much easier and quicker. Next thing we're going to do here is I'm going to use the scrap board that I just cut off, and I'm going to mark under it again and make 2 more sections to finish the floor. So now that we have all of our floor cut out and put on, next thing we're going to work on is the framing. I'm going to start on the front side first, and it's going to be 7 foot tall. All we have to do now is lift it up and nail it down. We're going to do the same thing here for the back frame, but it's only going to be 6 foot tall. Alright, so now what you're going to do here is you're going to put up your back wall frame and just nail it into your floor. Alright guys, so right now we're putting on the framing for the roof. Right now I'm going to just screw it onto these temporary blocks I set up. And we're going to screw it on to the front of the frame and also to the back of the frame. And as you've just seen right there, you want to make sure that your whole build is level. After that, you just want to measure the distance from the front to the back and cut out the rest of your roofing framing and screw it on. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to start on the side framing. For the side framing, I'm just going to cut out 2 bottom boards to put onto the floor so I can start my next wall. After that, we're going to take a measurement from the front to the back and we're going to put your wall studs at 16 inches apart. That way our 4x8 sheet siding will fit perfectly. Now what we're doing with our wall studs is I'm putting them on the inside of the frame and I'm marking them up top after leveling them, and that'll give me a perfect 10-degree cut. After you have them measured and cut out, just screw them on.
So after that, this is what you should be with by now. 3 studs on the wall. Beautiful. Now, do what you just did right here, repeat it on the other side, just like this. So when they're even, they are perfectly straight. And just like that, we're done framing the shell. Next, we still have to add the window, the door, window, and I want to add a little run back there. Plus, I still have to make my angles back here. But I'm still waiting on my mesh wire to come in for that. We're going to get that smart siding and get to it. The windows are 24 inches up, and the actual window itself is going to be 24 by 24. Same thing on this side. The door is going to be at 62 inches. It's 5 foot 2 inches.
So now what I'm doing here, I'm just making 24 by 24 inch squares for the window to go on. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here at the door, but it's going to be 5 foot 2 inches. Next thing I'm going to do here now is add my little roof support. It's just going to go on the bottom of all my panels. So what I'm going to do to make it prettier is just cut out a couple 2x4s here and match up the flatness.
Alright guys, now I'm going to try to add that western design to the top. Went with this little thing. Doesn't look too good on this, but let me show you.
All I'm doing here now is just measuring to cut, and then we're going to put it together and then throw it on top of the coop itself. Alright guys, now here's the fun part. Now we're going to start throwing on our smart siding. So since I like making things more complicated for myself, I just mark out the areas and then I go on a table and cut it. And now all that's left, throw your smart siding back up and nail it back in. You can either use nail or screws. I'm using my 3-inch nail gun. And since I don't have a helper, I'm just going to throw my smart siding on with a screw.
Right there is what it should look like whenever you're done with the front. Smooth on each side. And we'll come back through and cut that here in a minute and fix right up there. It's fine if it's wavy. You're going to have trim over it anyways, covering it all completely.
Alright guys, so what we're doing here now is we're throwing on the sides. Same thing you just did, except you don't have to mark out the windows or the door, just the top. Now just cut out the rest of it and nail it on. So when you're finished, this is what it should look like.
Alright guys, now to make this last lean, I've kind of been experimenting a little bit, that's why it's already up. But, have my 2x4 in place, and the roof's going to be the same as it was on the inside. I'm going to have a little supporting block here, just to hold it up.
So what we're doing now is adding that 10-degree slope on the back of it. All you're going to want to do from here is copy and paste this 4 times. We're going to also add 2 studs on it as well. And for the back here, you just want to connect them all. Now what we're going to do is we're going to work on the front door. It's the first piece that you cut out. Right here I'm going to cut 1 inch off of each side to make it all around a 1/2 inch when we put it back on. Now we're just going to add a little bit of fancy trim around the door. All it's going to be is just old fence pickets cut up. All I'm using to put it on is an 18 gauge nail gun. Now we're going to add a fancy Z pattern on it. All I'm doing is measuring 7 inches up and 7 inches down and a slat across it.
I know I skipped a little bit. I went ahead and made this back door. It has been the biggest pain that this coop has given me. It all had to be a custom size. Apparently on the back I didn't get one of the posts right. So it screwed up the whole thing, so I had to custom make this.
Pretty much what I was saying there is that back door has been the biggest pain in this whole coop. I had to do it off camera just to get everything perfect. It took forever.
Alright, so now what we're going to make that trim out of is old fence boards. That's what's going to give you your rustic design and make this thing stick out.
And all I'm doing here is just cutting off that weird design that fences have, just to make it flat and smooth. Now what I'm going to do here is use one of these fence posts to guide it, and I'm just going to go ahead and nail them on there with a 16 gauge nail gun. I know the back of it looks different now. This is the part I had to do off camera. Again, this took an entire day to do this back for me, so I'm sorry I did not get that on video. Pretty much I did it the exact same way as the roof framing. And as you can see, a new shirt, another day. What I'm doing here is I'm cutting out parts of the roof. I'm notching it out so it slides up against the back of the coop. And I don't know how I just realized, but I actually lost the footage of me putting on the roof, so I apologize for that as well. All it is just tap screws. So what I'm doing here now is I'm adding half by half pieces of wood just to stop the door from going in. It's like a door stop. And yes, it's going to look funny because I was working by myself. If you have help, it's so much nicer. Next is going to be your hinges. You just want to line it on the fancy part, and that'll be perfect.
Alright, we got our hinges on, but they're not on the actual coop. They're just on the door itself. What I'm going to do now is put up some trim before I put these on.
All I'm doing here now is screwing the hinges onto the trim, and that'll be through the wall as well, so that'll hold it all together. And then you just add on your little fence latch and you're good to go.
So now what I've done here from the windows is I've cut one of these right in half with my table saw.
All I'm doing here is just measuring that there's at least an inch lip on each side. That way I can put my mesh wire on perfectly. And then here we use one of the half pieces and throw it on top for the trim. And now we just add trim on all four corners. And then you want to do the exact same thing on the other side.
Now what we're going to do here before we put on the awning, we're going to rip another one of our boards. And this will be our guide. And then we'll throw the awning right on top of here. Going about 22 3/4 long. Here's for our 2x4, it's going to be 3 inches. The back of it is going to be 9 3/4 on the dot. Best thing to do here, start your screws. That's why I didn't see it. A little too far. You just want it to where it's holding in the wood. That's how you want your screws started. So now what you're going to do, you're going to grab that piece with your hand, hold it right here while drilling. It's going to be a little bit tricky. So much easier if you have another person, but since we don't, I get to hold it. Here's how it's going to look whenever you're done with it. Now, do it 3 more times. Alright guys, so once you got that done, you know, it looks a little wonky, but trust me, it's going to look good here in a minute. As you can see, I left space on the left and right side. That's for the design purposes. Now we're going to put a 1x1 in the back of each one, just so whenever we put this roofing on, it'll have something to stick to other than just the 2 boards.
All I'm doing here now is just taking measurements to cut my boards.
Now that you have that done, let's get our 1x1s back there. So now what we're going to want to do, get you a Dremel or some cutters. We got to cut this now. Throwing on a chalk line all the way across, a couple inches away from my boards. Let's cut down that line. We're going to use the scrap wood for this and throw it on the front.
What we're going to do here is take the scrap that we just cut off the back and throw it on the front. And yes, I know it's hanging off a little bit more on this side. I will come back here in a little bit and cut it. I'm just trying to get it in place. And all I'm doing at this point is just ripping it down.
The pain I go through to make you guys brand new videos. Man. Alright, so now what we're going to do for your final stages, we're going to put 1/4 inch mesh wire all the way around this.
And I know at this point you guys have seen me in multiple shirts. It's just because this project took me about a week to make.
Here's your first part. Cutting it off here because I'm going to put the door right here. All we do, put another layer up, same on both sides. After that, we're going to get the door knocked out.
So now all I'm doing here is hand stapling the whole thing together. It sucks, it's super time consuming, but it works. And about here in the video, I finally realized I had a brain and I used the proper tools for the job. And forgive me for some of these bad camera angles. I'm the only one trying to set up everything on a tripod. And it's kind of hard to see the good angles on it as well while I'm working. So now, let's get this door knocked out. We're going to do the same thing here as we did on the back. And it's always fun whenever you have to search for a new tool because this last one goes out on you. So now what we're going to do is just like the front, we're going to throw our hinges on and then our door latch, and then we should be good to go.
So now that you got into here, 2 hinges on. Beautiful. Boom. That's perfect. So now what we're going to do is work on the front. And here's the door. You can always come back by and add a skirt on, but just for this purpose, I'm not. So now for the windows in here, I'm actually going to measure it. Right here we got 2 foot by 21.5 inches. So now I'm going to cut out a piece out there and staple it inside here, just like this. Now, do the same thing right here, and you're good to go.
All we're going to do here now is measure out the inside and cut out a piece of mesh wire that fits on the inside, and you're just going to staple it in. You're going to want to go ahead and do that to both sides as well.
Okay guys, now once you got both your sides done, the very last step is our little piece of trim up here just to hide it. After that, you're 100% done and it's ready to go. Just like that, we are done.
So now that we're done with this beautiful chicken coop, step back and admire your work and check it out. I really do hope that you guys enjoyed this build. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow my channel for more builds. I think we're going to go ahead and throw this one on Facebook, see if we can get it sold. Let's see if we can make you guys some money too. Until next time, thank you guys again.